Hey, yo, welcome to another episode of the most authentic and nuanced holistic health and fitness podcast, hosted by your favorite crunchy strength and conditioning coach. I'm Kelsey Moore, and today's company is Jordan Fong, a retired college athlete who competed for both Stanford University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. During her time at both universities, she was a hammer thrower and studied product design engineering and has a master's in biomedical engineering. Now that she's post-collegiate, she's reflecting on her time in college athletics and saying goodbye to the sport she's loved for the past 10 plus years. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This is so fun having one of my old athletes on the air with me. This is just amazing.
So fun.
Awesome. Good. So I saw on a previous podcast, or I listened to a previous podcast where an easy icebreaker is something called the report. And so we're going to start off with the report just to, ease ourselves into this conversation. But okay, so report stands for REPORT, and R is reading. So let us know something you're reading, eating, playing, obsessing over, recommending, and treating yourself to. So what are you currently reading right now?
Currently I'm reading Mad Honey. I don't know the author,
Is it
but it is
fiction?
a very good book. It is fiction.
Do
But
you
it's
normally
like,
read fiction?
um, yeah, I feel like I started reading more once I got out of college, because I just had time on my hands, and so now I
Yeah,
enjoy like reading stories that I haven't picked up a book since probably I left high school. So I'm just enjoying reading fun stuff right now.
that's awesome. I think we all kind of go through that phase once we get out of college. So that's relatable. Eating. What are you obsessing over right now when it comes to eating?
I have been really into eating like making like little parfaits, and so I do like Greek yogurt, almond butter, and like blueberries and stuff, and kind of like add whatever I feel like that morning. But that's been like my go-to snack.
Sounds amazing. My gosh.
It's pretty good.
Okay, playing. What are you doing for fun?
I play sand volleyball with my friends on the weekends.
That's so fun. Did I tell you that I'm obsessed with volleyball? Have we talked about this?
I don't know, have we?
I don't
Probably
think
not.
we have. Of all the
I
hours
don't
that
think
we've spent
so.
together in the weight room, I don't think we ever talked about this, but good for you.
I'm also obsessed with volleyball, so.
Are you on a team?
I
Like
am
through the
on
city?
like an adult rec league, which is amazing. But it's the winter right now, so we don't have anything going. The only thing that's going is indoor, and I didn't do that. So I just meet with some of my friends on the weekends, and we play like either in Chapel Hill or in Raleigh, and at like just some sand courts. So
Oh
it's
my
been pretty
gosh.
good,
I'm
pretty fun.
jealous. I need to come up to Raleigh, maybe join your team. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
should. Okay, next, obsessing over. What's something, product, anything like that you're obsessing over?
Okay, I have really been into like DIY stuff. So I've
I
I've
love
been
it.
like I got a Cricut for Christmas.
Oh
Um,
wait, I didn't know that.
So, I've labeled everything in my house.
Oh my gosh, sorry. Hold on. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Hold on. We're live. Oh, I'm here. I'm here. All right. Sorry.
No, it's
I brought
okay.
her in my good. I brought her in my office with me, hoping that she wouldn't bark because she usually barks more when she's not in the office.
Mhm.
But that backfired, so I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Wait,
You might hear
DIY
a
with your
bear
Cricut.
somewhere.
You're labeling everything.
Yes, and like I like don't know what I'm like crafting at the moment, so I like made my dog a chunky blanket. So
That's
really into
amazing.
like just the crafting thing right now.
Good for you. Man, I'm not I think I've talked about this on my Instagram, but like I'm working on my homemaking skills, which probably includes some DIY and crafting. So I'm working on it, but it's not my forte. So I can appreciate people that do it more often.
It's like
Okay,
a once in a
recommending
while
something.
thing.
Oh, once in a while. Yeah, I know. I don't want to get creative burnout. What's something you recommend right now?
I really recommend meal prepping. I feel like it just like sets my week up for success, and I don't have to like worry about what I'm eating for my next meal. So it just like helps me stay organized.
I think you're the only college athlete that I coached that took her meal prepping so serious. Because most of the athletes would come into the weight room and they would be like coming in scrounging for granola bars and scrounging for protein shakes. like trying to get in calories without spending any money. And here you
Hmm.
are, like this mature master's student getting her master's in biomedical engineering, and you're coming in with like your prepped salads and grilled chickens and actual recipes and
Yes. Well, I had
still
to
hanging
eat,
on.
eat dinner on the way to class, so I had to be prepared, or else I didn't eat. So
I mean, if there's one thing that Jordan Fong is, it's prepared. So
it's
it
prepared for
checks.
everything.
Good. And last, treating yourself to. What are you treating yourself to right now?
Um, Oh, I just got this ice cream from Trader Joe's. It's like I think coconut milk based ice cream, but it's like coffee and boba, which is a really weird combo. I'm not sure how I
Mm-hmm.
feel about the boba in the ice cream because it's like really chewy. Um, but I'm giving it a try, so that's what I'm currently treating myself to.
Oh my gosh, sounds amazing. You know what I was treating myself to about an hour ago? Ben and
What?
Jerry's Tonight Dough. Yeah,
Oh,
not very real food of me. It's pumped full of bad food, but it's amazing. So,
it's
we're treating
okay.
ourselves to
It's
things.
okay.
Okay.
Ice cream
All
once
right.
in a while is
First
fine.
and foremost, where did you grow up? Did you play high school sports? Tell us some of your background. Tell us how you got into competing in college, and
Yeah.
then we'll go from there.
Okay, great. So I grew up in Kent, Washington, over on the West Coast. Growing up, I played a lot of sports. I was and still am a tomboy. So I love playing like pickup basketball with my neighbors, and like mentioned, I played volleyball and I'm obsessed with it. So I played volleyball growing up, basketball, soccer, track, of course, you name it. I played baseball at one time, but that wasn't exactly my favorite sport. So when I was in high school, I was deciding, as one does, what to do in college. And my top two things I really, or top three, I guess, that I really wanted to do were like soccer, volleyball, or track. And the first one I dropped was soccer, just because like I was in love with volleyball, like, and it was an indoor sport, which is nice coming from Washington when everything's raining all the time. So I kept playing volleyball and did track through my like high school career. And when I was like applying, so the recruiting process for volleyball is way earlier than it is for track. So I went through the recruiting process for volleyball way earlier. I was a libero, and so I could only. I'm short. I'm 5'6". So in terms of volleyball, like that wasn't that you're kind of limited to certain positions. And so I was being recruited as a libero and like went on college visits and everything and enjoyed it. But I just felt like there was something that I was missing, and it happened to be that track kind of opened a lot up more doors. Um, and like Kelsey said, I threw the hammer. So for those of you who don't know what hammer is, it's a ball on a wire with a handle, and you wind it around your head a couple times, and then you spin in a circle and you let it go and hope it goes really far. So I did that for a living. So when I was in high school, no one really knew about hammer, and so if you picked it up and you were good at it, like there was a really good chance that you were going to be like go to college for it, or you could go to college for it. And so I was very fortunate to have a coach in my area that was like actually like in my like not school district, but like within our like league. And so he saw me throwing the other events and was like, you look kind of coordinated, you should throw hammer. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we gave it a try. And his son actually ended up coaching me for the first summer, and I ended up falling in love with it. Like, you might think that you would get dizzy, which is might have happened, but I just did so many turns that summer. Like, I don't think I even realized I was getting dizzy. Um, so I ended up doing that and picking that up and like loving it because it was like something brand new and fun. And so let's see, I think it was my junior summer, I started applying for or like sending off all of my marks and like
Mhm.
everything. Like at the time I had like the record for Washington State for like women as hammer throwers, and I
That's amazing.
can't remember, I think it was like 170,
You talking
around
feet? You
somewhere around
talking
there.
yards?
I'm talking feet, so
Feet. Okay.
yards is far.
Oh wait,
But
yards would be like two football fields. That was stupid.
yards would be far. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. I would be in the Olympics right
Yes,
now.
you would.
um, But anyway, so I was sending out all of my emails with all my marks and everything, which is like kind of how you got attention from coaches. So I send a lot of like ones I knew I could get into, like looking at the marks and stuff that are on their website. Like I knew I could like be like an asset at the start. And then I sent a few like long shots out. One of my long shots was Stanford. I think I sent one out to like UT, which was also a long shot. But I got like an email back, and my mom and I kind of like laughed at it because we thought that it was like a mass email for like being like, come to our camp. But it ended up being from like the throws coach. He was like, yeah, we'd love to have you out on a visit. Like, let's talk. And I was like, kind of like dumbfounded that I was like, that had been an opportunity that like kind of just like came into my email.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I just kind of followed that track. And I think I was also looking at like UW, Wazoo. Um, I think there's probably one more that I'm missing. It feels like so long ago that I started doing this process. But after taking all my visits, I decided Stanford was it. Like I went to my official visit and like drove down Palm Drive, saw all the beautiful like architecture, and I was like, wow, like this is gorgeous. Like I don't know how I can say no to this. And so I ended up committing there and going there for the next 4 years. So,
That's amazing. I mean, just incredible. I think people think of those really prestigious universities and you just think about the sports aspect of it. But the other major side of it is you got into Stanford academically and
oh
you
yeah,
got into the engineering department. So there are like multiple layers of you competing for Stanford. It's not like you just threw your marks out there hoping that the head coach or the throws coach would pick up on you. It was like you also had to get into the school.
yeah,
So, can you talk
yeah,
about studying at Stanford? Just like give us a quick snippet of like, is it as hard as what people think it is? Talk to us about the engineering department.
yeah, for sure. So, like, I think yes, I think it is as like hard as people think it is, but I think that's just because the environment that you're in is so like not competitive, like it's like collaboratively competitive. So like
Hmm.
y'all are working together, but trying to do something like make something new, like make a new startup, make a like a new product that's gonna like change the world. Like that's just kind of like the vibe that you're in. And so you think from the moment that you step on, you could be part of something really big. So I think there's always like a lot of pressure and a lot of um like I don't know, pressure to like be
Yeah.
the next big thing. And so I think in that sense, it's really stressful, but it's also like you're surrounded by amazing people all the time who are doing great things. And to just be surrounded by that, like every day, surrounded by greatness is just such a cool like
It's so
experience.
unique.
Like, yeah, like you could literally like it's honestly so humbling because I came out of high school and was like the top of my class, like doing great things in track, and like I was like president of my high school, but like you I come to Stanford and like everyone else has done that, and like and on top of that has a company, and you're just like wow, like I mean my achievements are my achievements, but like the sky is basically the limit, so which is
Hmm.
also like pretty cool. So
Yeah. That's amazing. So you were studying at Stanford and you were competing for Stanford when COVID hit. So can you, because I know that's part of your story of getting from Stanford to UNC, which is where I met you because you had extra years of eligibility. So can you
yeah.
walk us through how those years looked? What was it like being a college athlete during COVID? For better, for worse. Granted, it afforded you time, in the Raleigh area, which is amazing, but also being in college during COVID had to be very difficult. So, can you kind of, walk us through that?
Yeah, so I think when when anybody hears COVID, they're like, "Ugh, not this again." But honestly, like that was kind of a nice break for me, because it was well, not at the time. Like looking back on it, it was a nice break. But during that, like we had, I think I was a sophomore at the time, and I did my fall semester and almost all the way through my winter quarter. Sorry, we're on quarters. So fall and winter quarter I did, and then we like after spring break, like that was it. Like we were sent home and not to return until further notice. Um, And so I think for a lot of people, like that was a very unknown and like kind of just like shocking, which the whole world was shocked. So it's not surprising. Um, but especially for like athletes, like it was kind of like we were leaving the place where we have like all the facilities and all of the nutrition and all of the support um that like we needed to like be good at our sport and to like maybe go home where we didn't have the like resources for that. And so that was kind of challenging to like think from an athletic perspective that um you were doing something one day and then you wouldn't know when you were getting back to it the next. um so that was tough. I also do not like online classes. I don't think anybody does, except for like the flexibility that you could like be in your car and also listening to like the professor talk about like molecules. Um, but like my stuff, I'm like was engineering, so I had a lot of hands-on classes and a lot of stuff that I should have been like tinkering in the lab and stuff, and I couldn't do that because of COVID. And so Stanford actually sent out 3D printers for us to use for like the engineering. Uh,
Oh
yeah,
my
so
gosh. What a boss move, Stanford. Oh my
I
gosh.
know it was.
That's
I was
crazy.
shocked. Yeah, and
Like
so we
to
were
your
like,
home address, shipped you a 3D printer.
yeah,
Wow. Good on them, man. Setting you up for success in the world, even during COVID. That's wild.
yeah, they knew what they were doing. I mean, they got. I mean, we definitely lost a lot in terms of academics,
Yeah.
but like they really did try to make up for it. So, which I really appreciated. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool to have your own 3D printer. So,
Yeah, that's crazy. I think nowadays, because people are so internet focused, of course, when people hear that you were a student at Stanford, they're going to want to know if you had any run ins with the Huberman lab out of Stanford. I'm assuming no, because you're in different departments, but maybe you did.
I don't think so. I
You
really
didn't. Okay.
don't. I don't think I did. Like I like remember, or I took a psychology class my freshman year where they ran the Stanford prison experiment. And so we got to
Oh,
like
the
see
one
where
that
they
went
did it.
haywire?
Yeah, but we
Is
won't
that
talk
correct?
about
Yeah,
that.
we don't need to talk about that. Let's move on. If you're curious, go look it up.
Yeah, but I mean, I took class and we got to go see where it was like like carried out and everything, and that was cool.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't even make that connection. That's actually crazy. Wow. Good on Stanford. Good gracious. Okay.
Yeah,
So you finished your undergrad at Stanford. You got your bachelor's in product design engineering, which afforded you the ability to go get your master's in biomedical engineering. So you ended up, I know, following one of your old coaches to UNC, and that's what brought you to UNC. So can you talk about that transition from going from the Pac-12 to now the ACC, what that competition change looked like, and what was it like being a master's student on a track and field team still full of undergrad students? That combo has got to
yeah,
be so strange because now, like, you're an adult, you're on your own, you're in an apartment, you're not in the dorms,
yes.
you're clearly meal prepping for yourself. And and obviously, I mean, we should tell the audience the reason why you and I got so close was because you were a master's student, you were taking classes at times when I would normally have the throws group
Mhm.
in the weight room, and that was not accommodating for master's classes. So I had you all alone in the
I
mornings,
know.
which was so much
So we
fun.
could
And I kind of
bond, all
miss
that
it. I'm not gonna
bonding
lie.
time.
Yeah, I know I miss our one-on-one time. But
I
talk
know.
about transitioning from the Pac-12 to
Yeah,
now the ACC, how you followed your coach, and that kind of whole shebang.
yeah, for sure. So I will say, like I did graduate from Stanford, like finished out like competing, finished out like my degree. So I jumped. So I didn't just like transfer out before I got my degree, but I jumped in the transfer portal. I think it was like in January of 22, just because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep doing track with my masters. Like masters are obviously like very rigorous, and I didn't know if that would be something that would is even like within my capability. Um, and it just so happened that one of my coaches that coached me my freshman year at Stanford was over at UNC and reached out to me and was like, I would like to come have you out for a visit. And I was like, oh, like this is real. And I looked into programs around there and I happened to find a program that was in biomedical engineering. which is what I wanted. Like product design was an amazing major and I like loved every minute of it, but I don't think it exactly got me into like the like medical field, like the medical devices and all that stuff. So I like knew, I think it, like in the back of my mind that I needed to go get my master's in something bioengineering. And so I found the program, like chatted with the director of the program and like hit it off and then applied and found out I got in and was sobbing because it was, felt like everything was falling into place. Um, and so in the day after I graduated from Stanford, I put myself on a plane and shipped myself off to North Carolina and then
That's
had master's
amazing.
classes that day. So
Oh my gosh, that is just wild. That's
yeah, very
amazing.
quick turnaround.
So now you have your master's in biomedical engineering. So what do you do for your job?
Yeah, so I currently work for Radiant Medical. I am a biomedical engineer, so I do like research and development. We are like a startup, and so I'm working on making a device that like utilizes DNA vaccines. So
Amazing. Forefront
yeah,
of medicine. Look at you, Jordan Fong.
I
All
know.
right. Okay, so let's talk about your experience in female sports specifically. And that's kind of why I wanted to have you on because um as you know, I mean, this podcast specifically today is not about me, but I connect with you in a lot of areas about being a female athlete and what it's like competing at a collegiate level in
Yeah.
track and field. There's lots of body image interesting things that start popping up when you're doing a sport that's incredibly qualitative, you can assign those values and numbers to how
Mhm.
your body is performing. And then as a female athlete, that plays a lot into our psyche. What it's like being in a sport that weighs heavily on your power output and your body composition. All of that starts playing into the whole picture of being a female athlete. Whereas I would say male athletes, I always say this, they're much more linear in the sense of like, are they winning? Yes or no? And that's typically connected to their identity, for better or for worse. But
Mhm.
women's sports specifically, it's much more fluid. So, first, I would love if you would share as much or as little as you want about maybe how your body composition and your body image and competing in the sport of track and field, how that was all interconnected. And then we can kind of transition to, or if it's connected or not connected, into your experience working with different types of coaches.
Yeah, for sure. So I will say my like psyche, mental health was very rocky. Like throughout my experience was kind of just like all over the place. Athletics is like really, really nice at your highs are so high, but then when you really hit a low, like it's like feels like the lowest place you've ever been. Um, so I feel like I've had my fair share of both. Um, but I feel like in a place like track, where you are, it's very objective. Like you can, like you have a mark, and if like that's your mark, like you can't really lean on anybody else to say like to blame it on them and be like, oh well, they messed up. Like at the end of the day, like I'm the one in the circle, and I'm the one who threw the distance. So it can be really hard on like your mentals because if you're off that day and you're just like, man, like I just did that. Like it's literally just on you. So I think I had to really come to terms with that. Like in success and in failure. Like again, your highs are really high. When I was doing well, I was like, man, that was all me. And then when I was not doing well, I was like, man, that was all me. So it's definitely something you have to get used to. But I think at the end of the day, like you just have to remember that like you're like I had to remember that I was trying my best and putting out like my best effort, and I can't change like what happens like in the past, what happened in the
Mhm.
past. Like I can't change the fact that I foot fouled on a really good throw. Like it happened. But the only thing I can do next is like go train harder or go get more reps and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
um it's it's definitely a different feeling competing at the top when you're surrounded by so many amazing people who might be training differently than you and like
Mhm.
getting better results. And I think now even with like, Instagram and like the prevalence of like recruiting, like people are putting all their training and stuff out there for you to see. Um, and so that's kind of like intimidating, seeing how everyone's training and
Mhm.
like they're like, you're lifting heavier than me, you're throwing like further than me. Like how are you doing this? Like what can I
Mhm.
change in my um like training? Um, but I think at the end of the day, like it really just depends on like your relationship with your coach and like you
Mhm.
trusting them like with their plan for you, because when you're at that level, like your coach should be tailoring your training to you as a specific, like you as your specific person.
Yeah.
Um, so
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, this is going to be like kind of a vulnerable question, but kind of at those lowest points, would you say that you leaned heavily like on negative soothing behavior habits, or do you feel like you actually lean towards more positive things? Like you were trying to take that as constructive criticism. I also realized I said qualitative earlier and I meant quantitative. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
okay.
It's not
Yeah,
subjective,
we
it's
we picked up what
objective.
you're
I
putting
I
down.
wanted to clarify that. I just realized that. So did you lean heavily, like, were you in the moment be like, "You know what? I just need to get more reps," or, "I just need to go trust my coach," or I just were you actually doing that in the moment, or were you digging your grave? If that makes sense.
Um, No, it makes sense. I was basically digging my grave. I will say, like before I started going to therapy, which some people can get into.
Mhm,
But before I was going to therapy, I was like not dealing with it well. Like I just kind of like shoved everything down and was like, "Oh, it was a bad day. Let's shove it down."
mhm,
And like, so then once I've had like enough bad days and I couldn't shut them down, like I would explode and be like,
mhm,
that would be like my breakdown.
mhm,
And so I don't think I had like healthy coping mechanisms for like, doing doing poorly in athletics.
mhm.
So
So then when
yeah.
you went to
I wouldn't
therapy,
say like
I'm
my self-talk
assuming
was the
oh,
best.
sorry.
Oh
Sorry, I
no, go
interrupted
ahead.
you. Your self-talk wasn't the best. Is that what you said?
Not in the moment, no.
Yeah. So then when you went to therapy, not only does that help you pick apart those difficult moments, but I think one of the best things that I've ever taken out of therapy is the tools that they give you when you come across another downer moment. So,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about your experience with therapy and what were some of the positive things that came out of that, or negative things if you didn't have a good experience with it? I'm assuming you had positive,
Yeah.
but okay.
Yeah, so I guess I'll be very upfront. Like I started therapy when I was a sophomore in uh at Stanford, and I did not get along very well with my like therapist, and so I like abruptly stopped. Which
Hmm.
probably like hindsight could have just kept looking for like another like someone to talk to, but instead I just kind of like cut it off. So that was like the first time where I was like had like given up on that. And so that was my first like negative experience, where I just felt like I wasn't getting anything from it. And I didn't realize that could have just been because like me and my therapist like weren't on the same page.
Hmm.
And so then I started going back. Um, I want to say either the end of my junior year or the beginning of my senior year. And that's when I really started to make like big gains in terms of like my mental health and like trying to cope with things that like I hadn't before. Um, and I think like one of the big things, like this sounds so dumb thinking about it right now, but like breathing is such a huge thing. Like in moments when like you're so stressed, like if you can bring your heart rate down, like that's like huge. And so we worked on like a lot of breathing techniques um to like bring that down. So like the in for four, the hold for
Yeah.
like I
Oh
can't
my
remember. I can't.
gosh, you're
I think
speaking
it's
my
like
language.
4, 6, 8 or something like that.
Hmm.
Whatever the
Box breathing.
count
Yeah,
is.
baby.
Yeah. So whatever we did like end up working. Like I
Hmm.
did really well my senior year, and like finished on a high note. Like I hadn't PR'd in a couple years, and so PR'd like my senior night at Stanford.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, yeah, what a high.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, whatever we were doing was working, and whatever um like all the stuff that we talked about like between between like practice, between relationships, between like getting ready to make a transition to a new thing, like whatever we were talking about
Mhm.
worked. And I think for me, like being able to like talk through it with someone who isn't exactly in my situation is so helpful. Like if I can just like kind of go through things and like say them out loud instead of bottling them up and keeping them down down very deep, then
Mhm.
like that's very helpful for me to like kind of clear my mind and help me think through things in like kind of like a logical way instead of like a very like emotional, like emotionally driven way.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, even when you were touching on the breathing, I mean, that's just amazing that your therapist walked you through that. I mean, even on a practical level in my life now, we at my job working for the Air Force, like we do a lot of that. It's called stress inoculation, where basically you have them do a workout or you put them through a stressful event and then you ask them to do the task that they're supposed to do based on their job in the military. And what's the number one thing that we teach them how to do? Get their heart rate down. And we teach them that style of box breathing. And it's so interesting that, like, I always talk about stress is stress, whether the stress is mental stress because you didn't hit your mark or you fouled out or
Mhm.
because you're studying at Stanford and there's a lot on your plate, or you're in literal war, whatever the case is,
Yeah.
stress is stress. And the way to take a step forward so you become less emotional and you can manage the task at hand, it comes down to breathing. And that's really cool that your therapist taught you that.
Yeah.
My next question for you, because you already kind of hit on it with social media, which this was a bit dumbfounding to me, honestly, when I got to Carolina, was I had taken a pause from working in college athletics for about 4 years because I had taken another Air Force job in between my time at
Yeah.
K State and Carolina. And
Mhm.
even that 4 year gap, social media had changed in an insane way. And I remember just so many small instances at Carolina where I would have small interactions with athletes or even with the coaching staff where they would bring up that concept that you said. It's so crazy to see on a daily and detailed basis what your direct competitor is doing. That can be so hard as an athlete, and that can be so hard as a coach to get your athletes focused enough or understand their identity enough or trust in your process enough to put them through the training plan that you want. I cannot even imagine trying to be an athlete, but seeing your competitor on social media.
Mhm.
And at that point, you don't have the self discipline to not look at it. At that
Yeah.
point in your life, you're eating it up, right? Like you're looking every day to see what they're doing. And then you're
Mhm.
comparing, and then it is destined to be a train wreck. Um, can you talk a little bit more about that? You don't necessarily have to talk
Yeah.
about yourself, but can you talk maybe about like overarching themes of seeing collegiate teams have the ability to have access to social media where they see their competitors? Because I'm making it sound kind of lame, but that was a huge hurdle. And it's kind of something that you can't, as a coach, you can't you can't change it. You can't even
Yeah.
influence it. All you can do is pour into your athletes and continue to reaffirm the plan that they're on. But can you talk about the positives and the dark sides of that whole dynamic of seeing your competitors every day?
Yeah. Well, I think there's always that like kind of glaze where it's like, okay, like this is social media, like it some of it is real life and some of it is like kind of beefed up to make it look like really good. And so like when you see like really cool edited videos of people throwing and like awesome edits of like media day and stuff like that really gets like I didn't really see that when I was getting recruited, but I feel like that's such a big deal now that people
Mhm.
see that like this like you are like put like center stage, and I think that's like a really big deal to some people. And I think so people are trying to now to cater their like recruiting towards that and make like media day cooler and have like videographers who like are following like people around and just like doing like fun things with the athletes, so you're trying to like interact and like make
Mhm.
like your team and your like university seem more fun for those that either are considering it or
Yeah.
like are in it. So I remember we started a throwing count at Stanford for like our throws group, and it was just like videos of us throwing, videos of us, or pictures of us at media day, like pictures of us like at dinner at somebody's birthday, like it was just like a cool thing for us. Like we were the ones running it, so it was like really cool for us to be doing it,
Hmm.
and like being involved with that. But it is definitely hard. I will say, like when I moved away from Stanford, like and was at Carolina, like it was really hard for me to like look at Stanford stuff because
I can
I
imagine.
like love like I will always love my undergrad. Like I spent 4 years there, put like blood, sweat, and tears into that university. So like it's hard to walk away. And like I said, like I started the day after I graduated. So like there was no time to decompress. Like it was just straight into the new thing. So watching them train every day was really hard, and I was like, wow, like I like not that like I still think going to Carolina is was the best decision for me, and like I would make that decision again in a heartbeat. But you know, there are moments like when I thought like, did I make the right choice? Like, should I have stayed? Like, all my friends are there. Like, I don't know anybody at Carolina besides obviously the entire coaching staff.
Yeah, because they all came from
um,
Stanford. Yeah.
yeah, but it's definitely hard. Like you see, like when I see my competitors, like I love the weight room. I don't think I put up like the most amazing numbers. I'm like a fast athlete, so like I can move weight fast, but not necessarily like move a lot of weight, like slowly. Um,
You're a power athlete, not a strength
yeah,
athlete. There you go.
yeah, power cleans.
Yes, amazing. Oh my gosh, you're incredible.
So like seeing other athletes like lift really heavy is really intimidating, or like the amount of reps they get in every day like is also because you're like, oh, should I be doing more reps in my training? And at the end of the day, like my coach and I at UNC had an amazing like relationship. Like we worked really well together. Like we understood each other and like knew how to like cater our like our words and like how we talked and what we said
Hmm.
to like each other. So like we were like for the most part like on the same page, and like training, like in terms of like all of my grad school classes, like we had to be on the same page because I wasn't always there when he was like coaching everybody else, or like lifting with everybody else. So like at the times that I needed to be on the same page with him, like we were.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think at one point like I even muted like all like muted everyone that I knew, like because I was like, I can't watch you train. I was like, this is so nerve wracking to see you guys like going to meets and me like still be twiddling my thumbs waiting for like things to happen. And so I'm a very impatient person, and so I really had to like focus up and like kind of rein it in and like take what I like control what I was looking at, and like so that I wouldn't be doubting like my training and my coach
Mhm.
and my lifting and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
definitely hard now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I mean, it's pure self-discipline, and to have the maturity to understand how that's affecting you in the long run, like you have to take that 10,000 foot view,
Mhm.
and most athletes aren't going to be able to do that quite yet. Um,
Yeah, and I guess I'll say like I was like 23 at like
mhm,
Carolina. So like I had
mhm,
like all of my wisdom that I gained from Stanford like had like been carried over. So like I was all business last year, like which is like I really like didn't have a life. Like that sucks to say, but like I trained, I went to class, like I slept. And so I wasn't into the whole like going out and doing things that like weren't gonna benefit me, because I had weighed those pros and cons at Stanford and had done all that stuff and knew it didn't benefit me at the time. So I was like, 1 year, like I can do that. Like, and it's definitely like doable to like, and for some people, like it's not. Like for some people, like social is very important. But for me, like I was really focused on like my sport and academic, so it that took priority over everything else. So
and that's why I loved you. You were a pillar
I
of the
showed
team.
up.
As you showed up, you were serious, you were focused, and I loved that about you. I still love that about you. Okay, so this is gonna be like a random, gonna seem like a random story, but I teach. ROTC for my Army Reserve duty.
Hmm.
And I teach the freshman class at Fayetteville State in the ROTC department. And one of the things that we go over is like Army basics. And some of the Army basics is like how to be a good leader in the Army. And what does that look like?
Hmm.
Give examples. Are they a sarcastic leader? Are they a confident leader? Are they, do they have military bearing or are they like a buffoon? Like we go over all those characteristics. And one of the, like practical exercises that I put them through is I have to make them stand up and tell an example of somebody in their life who displayed a particular type of characteristic. And we talk through that for better, for worse, who this person is. And I would say 9 times out of 10, the person, like let's say we're talking a characteristic of integrity. Okay. 9 times out of 10, most of my students will give an example of a coach for better or for worse. A coach who was very integral or a coach who was a scumbag. Or does that make sense? Like it's always
Yeah.
going to be a coach. And I think that always points to the aspect that coaches have such a unique position with an athlete because that athlete is going to be usually, again, most of the time, younger than the coach. The coach is in a position of authority. The student athlete has to trust that coach, not only with training, but training also bleeds into their identity. It bleeds
Hmm.
into the amount of time that they're putting into their sport. And it just weighs so heavily on me to be a good coach and to be a good example of positive characteristics because I know that my athletes will walk away having a positive experience with me and therefore will look upon their sport in more of a positive light because
Hmm.
just because of how I treated them on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to turn it back around to you about just understanding coaching experiences because coaching experiences can shape your overall memories and um, connotations of that time period in your life. So, can you maybe give us as much or as little as you want about your experiences with different types of coaching styles? And so much so you liked this coach so much, was particular coach so much that you followed him to UNC.
Hmm.
So, you've clearly had some trusting experiences with coaches, but talk about that in your unique atmosphere.
Yeah. So I mean, you're totally correct. Like my freshman year, of to preface, the coach I had at UNC wasn't the coach that recruited me, and so he came into Stanford and like we kind of hit the ground running and like I don't know how it happened. Like I don't know what the specifics were, but we were like on the same page from the jump. Like we were communicating like really well, and I was a chaotic freshman at the time, so someone reining me in and like being able to like get me to focus for like at least one throw was like huge. And so he knew how to talk to me and like captivate my like attention so that I understood things in like my whack brain. Um and so much so that like I when I was picking my grad school, I went to him as like one of my options because I knew that if I was gonna be at my most like stressed self, that like he was able to like talk to me and communicate with me and understand me my freshman year. And so I knew I could get that support again being a master's student and being at a high stress environment. So that was like a really big component. And I think like being able to like again tailor like your training to your athlete and be able to like communicate with them on like a very personalized level is very important. Um, and so my he did that very well. But as I said, he was not my coach the entire time I was at Stanford. I did have another coach who did not understand me very well, and that was hard to say the least. We did not get along very well just because I think we had two very different styles. Like I was perceived as being very sensitive and very weak from the jump, and I don't know what happened in translation, or like what vibe I was giving off to like do that, but um it was very much like I'm gonna plow over you type feeling as a coach, and that strained our relationship a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it was just like very different from the previous relationship that I had, where like we were on the same page all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
to go to this new coach who we were on two totally different planets at any given time. So yeah,
Do you
I
feel
mean,
like
I like
in
I'll
regards to
go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I will be very upfront. Like it was a very rocky relationship, and so being able to like navigate that was hard after coming from a coach who like
Mm-hmm.
supported you and was able to communicate. So I think I had to like relearn how to kind of like frame coaching and frame practice, because like I went into the weight room and I was all of a sudden like weak again. Like I said, like I'm not the strongest athlete. I'm a power athlete. So I'm like really fast and can do a lot of different things. But if you ask me to squat like, you know, 300 pounds, like I might not be able to do it just like fresh. so, so it was definitely hard to adjust to that. But
Yeah, I get that. I think anytime, like as a coach myself, when I hear that, how athletes have had poor experiences with their coaches, the first thing that I always think about or try to reframe for those athletes is those like the coach is in the position of authority, therefore they hold the responsibility to take the initiative to figure out the athlete. It's never the athlete's responsibility because they are in a lower position based on age, based on just
mhm.
position in regards to coach athlete relationship. So when a coach takes on these maybe passive aggressive styles of communication, or they take on these toxic forms of communicating, or um, conflict or anything like that, I always say that's the coach's responsibility. They need to be mature enough as a coach to take that step forward, to take the initiative to say they're sorry, or to represent a good leader, to show good leadership styles. And most of the time, when there is a negative relationship going on, it's going to be the coach's responsibility to figure out the athlete. Whereas, I don't want to put words in your mouth,
No, go
but
ahead.
do
Yeah.
you feel like you were squirming because you were trying to figure out that coach? Like you were trying to communicate with her? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there was
Like
a lot of
that, I think
squirming.
that's the
There was a lot
disconnect.
going on in terms of that, and like within that relationship that like were just made no sense. But it was very much like a power trip. Like for
Mhm.
like I felt like I had to like bend at every will that I had to like make her happy, and to like, you know, like she had come from like like a good a different school who wasn't necessarily put under the same pressures of being at Stanford were. So like
Mhm.
academic stress is still stress. And so it was hard for her to understand that. And so like I remember my sophomore year being so much physical pain that I was ready to quit. I was ready to be like, this is it for me. I cannot endure this anymore. Like this is too much. And on top of that being like all else stressed. um but in those moments where like I feel like we were reaching and like asking for help, like we were just being plowed over, which was
Mhm.
hard because like you said, like the person that you're coaching you is supposed to like have that responsibility, like connect with you and figure you out, and like in all of our like pleas of like like help, like nothing was happening. Like we were just being like shut, like be like brushed out of the way, and it was hard. Like it definitely
Mhm.
wasn't easy, and like that I think is when like the lowest, the when I started to take my
Yeah.
dive in terms of like mental health, because then like you know that you're not supported by your coach, and you know just like you hear things like the things that they say and the things that like you hear, especially as an athlete, because you're looking up to someone you're supposed to trust and supposed to like, you
Hmm.
know, respect. And then when they're saying these things to you that maybe are like shouldn't be said or like incorrect, like you're like, man, like, is it me? Is this really like is this a me problem? Like am I the one that's like having the issues? And so like I think for a lot of the time, like I thought that it was me and I thought that like I
Hmm.
was the problem, and that I wasn't trying hard enough, but it like was the other way around. Like I had tried to
Yeah.
fix the relationship and tried, and there's just like so like relationships are so complicated, and especially when you tie in performance to that, like it's
Hmm.
hard because you have to have these hard conversations, but you also have to like perform for them or like you need them to like adjust your training or like adjust your form. So it's
Yeah.
like it's hard when you have to like have tough conversations and also like need to lean on them.
Yeah. And then also from the coach's perspective, the coach needs you to perform for their job security.
Mhm.
So that dynamic gets
Oh, a bunch of
really difficult.
mess.
I mean, it's from both ends, right? The athlete is the one in the vulnerable position. They're the one putting in all the work.
Mhm.
Their life is wrapped up in their performance, already trying to figure out identity, which happens to every single college athlete.
Mhm.
They're trying to trust a coach who, if that coach doesn't have positive relationship and communication styles, then that becomes skewed. And then that coach is then looking at the athlete to perform, but the athlete doesn't trust them. And then it's just, and then what
It's
happens? You
messy.
know,
It's messy.
it's messy. Golly. I mean, we haven't even touched on the freaking transfer portal or NIL. I mean, give an athlete money and
Yeah.
yeah, like it goes haywire quickly. There's another power
Yeah.
dynamic.
Oh, don't even talk about money. I remember it being such an issue, like on who was on scholarship and who wasn't,
Yeah.
and why they were on scholarship or why they were getting more money. And it's like, I mean, granted, people that get scholarships like are very privileged because you're getting money to do something that you love.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, like if you're performing and like you're doing well, like money shouldn't be the only thing that's like like motivating you, you know, like you should want to
Yeah.
do well in your sport just because like you love it, not because like you could get money from it. Granted, it is a
Yeah.
good motivator and people use it to motivate themselves, but I think at the core like that, like if you're only worried about like money, then like that's again a hard thing for like an 18-year-old to
Yeah.
like figure out. So
That's really hard. I think the theme that keeps coming out of the conversation is Jordan Fong is very mature for her age. Because
yeah,
you're thinking through
well,
all of this and you're realizing that, that money isn't everything, being on scholarship isn't everything. You should do it because you love it. You know, those are big topics that can be really
yeah.
hard for an athlete to try to decipher through, especially
Well,
when they're
again,
18, 19,
like
20 years old.
I don't think I had the same perspective when I was 18.
True.
I did it for 5 years, so like now I can like look back and be like, who needed that money? I was just doing it for fun, or who um like again like a lot of my like therapy sessions were around like coaching relationships. So being oh my god, so being a this is my dog in case anybody can
Hey,
see
both of
this.
our dogs made an appearance.
But it, it's it's hard to juggle all those things, and for to like give it to an 18-year-old and be like,
Yeah.
hey, like figure this out is just crazy. Like I told you, I was a
Hmm.
crazy freshman, um and definitely like I don't know if I can call myself mellow, um but like I definitely was not like this, and I definitely didn't think through things as a freshman. Like it was very much like instant. Like I was very in the moment as a freshman and didn't like
Yeah.
really think through all the stuff that I do now, um which is why I go to bed at 8 p.m. now, but like
Because you're a professional, girl.
yeah.
Um, okay, so you kind of talked a little bit about your mental health experiences, especially going through Stanford, maybe having some difficult relationships with your coaches. But how are you managing those mental health moments or experiences now that you're post collegiate? I mean, we're all human. We all have this ability to just like our problems are our problems. And whether whatever environment we're in, we're going to take our own problems into that environment. So whether you're an
Mhm.
athlete or you're a biomedical engineer, or whether you're a stay at home mom or whatever it is, like your problems are your problems. So
Yeah.
now that you're a biomedical engineer, how are you still managing those mental health ups and downs, even though your environment has changed?
Yeah, so I think like I definitely so I will say like I definitely get a lot less like ups and downs. I feel like it's pretty like sports are so like volatile, like and you can go up and down on the day like
Hmm.
every couple hours. And so it's different shifting into like your professional life because it seems, at least from my perspective, like it seems to be more like, stagnant. So like maybe you'll dip like here and there, but like it's pretty stagnant. And so like when I get into a stressful situation, like or like when I have to have a tough conversation, like I will go back to like everything that I learned in therapy, like and be like, breathe, remember to breathe. Or like remembering like that these tough conversations that you're having or like these things that you're saying, like it's not necessarily about you personally, which I think is something that like something huge that I had to like learn how to separate, is that like when I was in college, like I was my sport and that was like my entire identity.
Hmm.
And it was pretty much throughout up until the day that I finished throwing. Um, and even afterwards, I was like, I was like, who am I? I was like, what is it to my life now that I don't have athletics?
Yeah.
And that I don't have a team to like go to practice with and see every day. I was like, that you just lost like a huge part of my identity. So like when you're in those situations, when I was in, again, when I was in college, like being mostly sport, like my mood, my mental health, like went up and down as much as my like marks did. Um, and so it's not like that anymore. Like I think I like am stressed when like I have a project due, or stressed when I have like a deliverable that I have to do. But it's on like a less stressful scale.
Yeah.
um, which is just funny. But also like I take time from like now that I don't have to practice 20 hours a week, I like take time for myself, and like I'm able to do things that I like. Like I said, like I'm getting into reading again. I'm like taking my dog for walks every day, and like lifting and like doing things that I like enjoy and not just because I have to,
Yeah.
which is like a huge thing. Not that I did like, I will always love track, but you know, it's different when you have to go, or like when you
Hmm.
have a set practice time or you have a set like lifting time. Like that's very different from being like, oh, I'm gonna go lift just because I
Yeah.
want to. Or yeah, so I think that's like a pretty big thing, is like now, and like when I like can recognize like when I'm stressed and can be like, oh, I need a breather. I need to go do something that I enjoy doing.
Hmm.
Which I mean, what I used to do was go when I was stressed, I would go eat a bunch of like a bag of chips. But now I just go walk my dog. So much healthier coping
There
mechanism.
you go. I love it. Self-soothing, you know? What are you going to choose? I think also like as you leave college athletics and you are developing into like a well-rounded adult and you start reading more, you start learning how to cook, you start learning the things that you love outside of the sport, you have this sense of self-confidence because you now understand you bring more to the table than just the sport. You know, when you compete and you're an athlete and that's like all you have time for because it's consuming your life because you're a college athlete, that is the nature of how it is set up and how it has to be. But when you become an adult, you're like, or let's say you fail at being an athlete, let's say you just take a nosedive, then your whole world is rocked. Whereas when you're an adult and you've kind of branched out and you have matured in these other areas, then I, as Kelsey, can say, you know what, even if I'm not coaching, I'm a really good wife. Or even when I am not the greatest at being a wife because I'm being selfish or whatever, it's like, well, I can bake some bread. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but
Her bread
I
is
feel
really
like
good.
oh, thanks. Thanks so much. I feel like I bring more to the table because I'm starting to figure myself out more. Does that make sense? It's like
No,
I'm not just a
totally.
coach. Like I'm a daughter. I am a wife. I am a dog mom. I am a neighbor. I am a citizen that is contributing to society on many levels,
Mhm.
and that can seem really simple, but it's the truth. So when people like don't have hobbies or they don't have other things going on and they just pour their entire life into one thing, I always think, man, you're putting all your eggs of confidence and identity in one basket. And that can get a little dicey if things fall apart. And I kind of sense that in you, like as you're leaving college, like I obviously knew you as a master's student and now I know you as a regular old biomedical engineer. It's fine. Um, but I
Yeah.
think I see that in you in such a positive, amazing way. It's like you're just branching out and you have always brought so much to the table because you're an incredible human being. But as an adult, you can feel some self confidence because you bring more to the table outside of just being Jordan Fong, the athlete that's competing for Stanford or UNC.
Yeah, and I think that shift happened a lot earlier for me than it probably could have for a lot of other athletes. Like I think my sophomore year is kind of when I was like when I made that shift, it was kind of everything was going south. I was like, I need something else to lean into. And so I leaned into like my church, my academics, like my friends who like I love, like my family. So like I was leaning into things that like maybe I didn't see. Which I mean, it sucks to say that like, you know, because I was going through such a tough time that I had to find
Mhm.
something else to focus on. But at the same time, like it refocused like my identity. Like I was able to be like, I have way more going for me than just athletics. And so when things are going poorly, or like when I took time off during COVID from throwing, like I had other things that I could enjoy and do. And like I said, I mean, even now I'm doing like my little cricketing, sticker cutting, and stuff like that. But like that, I was
Awesome.
like leaning into that when I was taking time off because I just love tinkering and messing around. And so I think like from as an athlete, like you really have if you don't find like your identity outside of athletics, then I think in the long run, like that really takes a toll on your mental health.
Hmm.
Because then you have no other outlet. Like you have nothing else to you think that like that's your entire world. And so I think it's really important as athletes, like as much as people want you to focus on your sport, like that is very important, but also to have like some other things that you're very passionate about. Which I was very fortunate to find pretty early on.
Awesome. I love that. As an athlete who competed in a power based sport, how do you feel like that impacted your body image for the best, for the worst? I talk to a lot of women nowadays where I try to build their confidence through strength training. But as a girl who dedicated her life to a sport that was heavily relied on strength training, talk a little bit about that. And if you want to hit on it, I'll let you choose for your own self. Um, did you feel supported in the NCAA structure of female athletics in general? Female athletics and like the experience of Title IX has a magnifying glass, but also at the same time, like it's so difficult right now. It's such a difficult time for people to have those conversations. So I would love for you to hit on your body image, and if you want, you can hit on maybe how you felt supported or not supported in just the realm of NCAA female athletics.
Yeah, so I have always loved lifting from like I lifted in high school with the football players at like 6 a.m. and like enjoyed that. Like I was a weirdo. I'm just kidding. I loved it.
I
But
loved it
like
too.
that was definitely like not very popular when I was growing up. Like I was the only girl in the weight room. And like my school was like just starting to have like all female weightlifting like class, which is like so cool to think about that like they were even doing that.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and so like I have always like known that I'm strong and wanted to be strong. And so I've always been on like the bigger side. Like I'm like I lift or like I work out, but like I also like snacks, if that makes sense. So I've always been on like that side. Um, but I think when I was at Stanford, like I like there's always like when you go into athletics, like there's always like this like you have an image of what you want yourself to look like. So for most throwers, it's like Valerie Allman, who is like an Olympic discus thrower and world champion and stuff like that. Like, like she's an amazing thrower. And so like, but she's also like very lean and something that I don't identify. Like I'm not very lean. But like it's something that like I didn't think was um like I would say like important as for being a hammer thrower. Like maybe it is for discus, which is like what other people, which is what she threw. Um, but so for me, like I was always looking at people to girls who were like my size or like bigger. So thinking in that sense, like I didn't necessarily have an issue with my image. What I did have an issue with was when like my mental health tanked, so did my body image, and so did my eating habits and stuff like that. So like
Mhm.
that's I think when it did start being an issue was when like I fell away from the habits that I had been like sticking so hard to. So like when I like took time off from track, I was like at my heaviest in terms of like body composition. Um and like that took a toll because I was like, I am no longer like even like close to what I should be looking like. I was like, my body can't do what it needs to. Like my heart is working way harder than it has to. And also like I just don't feel confident. Like I don't think my body can do what it could like 30, 40 pounds like lighter. Um and so like at the time I think I was like very self-conscious about like what about my body image because I had like my coach telling me I looked a certain way and that like she noticed like when I was gaining weight or when I was losing weight and like that was like also
And that
like
was
traumatic. Like
communicated negatively to you? That wasn't like
yeah.
okay, yeah, that oof,
And so like
that's tough.
I mean weight like everything is always so like that's a stressful conversation but like for someone to
Absolutely.
tell you that they notice that is even more like oh my god like
That is
like now let me go hide in a cave.
devastating.
Yeah.
That's honestly devastating, and that literally kills me to hear. I know that you and I have had hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of conversation, but like that point in particular literally kills me. That the fact that someone didn't have grace within that conversation when it comes to performance metrics, you know, sometimes there are conversations to be had because you as a coach have to link that to your
Mhm.
performance. However your body
Yeah.
composition is. Sometimes it has to happen. But
Yeah,
if
for
that
sure.
conversation does not come from love or from grace, golly, man, that's
Yeah, and I
freaking
will say,
brutal.
like I mentioned, like I was a fast athlete, like not running, but in terms of like in the circle, I was a
Yeah.
fast like thrower, and so when I started gaining weight, like I was getting much slower, and instead of having that conversation, like, hey, you look a little slower in the ring, it was like you're gaining weight, what are you doing, kind of thing, and so it wasn't
Yeah.
like where there could have been grace, there wasn't, and so I think that that was just like not communicated to me correctly, which again
Mhm.
reflected how poorly I thought of myself in terms of like body image
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Um, so then so after that whole situation, um, I was like, I need to lose weight. Like I need to lose weight fast. So I did like, you know, I'll be very honest. I did Weight Watchers, which is like
I
not
didn't know that.
like so. Hi, do Weight Watchers. But
Yeah.
like as an athlete, like that was not good for me. like like we
Yeah,
talk
like a
about like
performance. Yeah.
we talk about like getting your protein and getting like all of the stuff that you need to like perform and like yes I was losing weight but I was also like miserable like low energy like did couldn't like I could go to practice but like wasn't lifting the weights I wanted to like felt just like so fatigued all the time just because my body wasn't like getting the fuel that it needed
Mhm.
and so like at the time like all I could think about was like I need to lose weight and so I did but it wasn't necessarily the healthiest way and it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily like with my like performance in mind. Um,
Yeah.
so that
Whew.
was tough. That was a low point.
Yeah, oh my gosh, absolutely. And I think again from my coaching mind, I'm thinking, okay, I see an athlete whose body composition is changing that is not benefiting their performance. That should be a red flag and a perfect opportunity for me as a coach to step in, especially if it's a female athlete. If it's a male athlete, sometimes you can again navigate that conversation a little bit more uh direct because they probably can just
Mhm.
go run every day and they can probably lose weight and probably be fine sometimes. But if it's a female athlete, because we're so interconnected with our emotions and with our community and our friends and our family. Like we feel deeply. And those are some of our amazing attributes as women. When we see a woman whose body composition is changing, that's not helping their performance, that should be a moment and like a note in my head as a coach to say, what else is going on in this athlete's life that is influencing her body composition in this way. And that should
Yeah.
be a grace filled conversation. Whereas your coach didn't even think 10 steps down the road. She just saw a problem and wanted to address it. And what did that
Yeah.
leave? That left an athlete still feeling the passive aggressive nature of the communication style, the athlete going through drastic measures to change their body composition to influence their performance. Therefore, you were left feeling terrible. You achieved what she wanted, but really did you achieve what she wanted? She wanted you to be a better hammer thrower. Did that make you a better hammer thrower? Right? Like did you
Yeah.
really achieve what she wanted? You know what I mean? Even though you
Mhm.
felt
Mhm.
terrible. So it's just tough as a coach for me to hear that. It really fires me up because I'm like, did you not? I just want to talk to that coach. Be like, did you not have a brain? Did you
Don't
not
we
have a
all?
brain? Oh, it drives me crazy.
No, and
I
I
can go
I
on.
really I really appreciate you bringing up the point that like we are emotion like we feel things and we're very like I'm not gonna say very emotional, but like we feel things like at our core and it's just
Mhm,
like who we are. And I feel like that was like turned against me. So like one of the
mhm,
things that I had an issue with, like in terms of like being a female athlete was like I was told that if I showed emotion, I was weak or I was misrepresenting women or
mhm,
I was like showing that way too much emotion meant that I was like way too weak to even be in athletics. And I think that right there is like the issue within
mhm,
itself. Like, I feel like women can be objective in terms of athletics, in terms of like, um, in terms of just like performance and stuff like that. Like, there, like, okay, it's like totally okay for us to like cheer when we have a good mark or a good race. Like it's those
yeah,
things are totally okay. But to turn it around and say that like you can't show negative emotion or you can't like shed a tear, like I watched Deanna Price like sob at one
yeah,
of her throws, and that was the most powerful moment to me because I was like, that right there is a powerful moment.
mhm,
That right there is like raw emotion at its core. I was
mhm,
like, so I as a woman feel like I should be able to like show emotion and be okay with it and that it shouldn't be
mhm.
frowned upon just because I'm a woman because that would have never like been said to a male athlete, which I think is
Sorry, it cut
like
out a little bit. Are you there?
oh yeah.
Um, no, I totally agree. Ugh, we're getting into good conversations here. I totally agree. And immediately the thing that I think of when you say that is when you hear coaches say that you can't show emotion or that emotion feels negative, that feels like you're expecting that female athlete to be a male athlete, right? That's a whole other discussion whether or not we should like let our men be emotional, right? Like that's a whole other thing. Step that
Mm-hmm.
like put that aside. But when you go to a female athlete and you ask her to deny her very nature of how she communicates how she's feeling
Mm-hmm.
in a positive sense, not like in these negative, weird, like you're constantly leaning on emotions and like you're, rocking the boat, whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But like you're denying the very nature of who she is and how she wants to experience her highs and lows. then you're doing that athlete a disservice as a coach because you're expecting that female athlete to be like a male athlete, and that is not how they operate.
Yeah, and I think like at least for me, like I felt like my life was wrapped up, like all of the stress, all everything that was happening in my life, like they always tell you to like drop everything at practice, like drop it at the door. But that's like
Yeah.
realistically like not like you can't really do that. Like you can compartmentalize as best as you can,
Hmm.
but like if crap is going down outside of track or outside of your sport,
Hmm.
like it's hard to just let that go. Um and so for me, like it was so intertwined in like my practice. Like if I was having a crappy day, like I would
Hmm.
try my best to put on a good face. And then like if something happened, like and I like something went wrong and I threw as poorly or I fell in the ring and got like stopping
Hmm.
wet because it was raining, like then that's when like the tears would come out and then I'd be like, I'm so frustrated right now.
Hmm.
And that's like totally okay. It's like totally valid and something that like I learned in therapy is like you need to feel your feelings. Like you can't just shove them down.
Hmm.
And it's like okay. It's okay to show emotion. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be like so happy that you cry. like like
Yeah.
these things are all okay. And as a like female athlete, like that's so important for you to like be able to feel everything. Like make like I wouldn't say that I had the healthiest coping mechanism in terms of emotions because I would again stuff them down. Um, but
It
like
happens.
knowing that now that like it's okay is so powerful because then like I feel like in control as opposed to
Hmm.
like maybe early like before when I was stuffing everything down, like I wouldn't know when everything would just like explode and I'd be like sobbing and frustrated and like
Yeah.
it, so that's like that was a huge thing for me and a huge thing that I had to learn was that like it's okay to have
Hmm.
emotion. It's like totally fine.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Totally agree. I remember talking with like a pack of the interns that we had. We were they were helping us at UNC one semester. And there's always this conversation like when you take a bunch of male undergrad interns and you give them to primarily like female sports,
Yeah.
it's naturally the questions are going to come up. You cannot avoid the questions of these young men saying, "How am I supposed to get through to these girls? How am I supposed to communicate differently to them?" Which you can say you can communicate exactly the same way, but anybody with a brain will know that you have to adjust some of your communication styles in positive ways, not in manipulative ways, in positive ways to communicate so that the athlete, female or male, can hear you and understand you in a better way, more clear and concise way. And I feel like I have boiled this down. I may change this in the future. And this is a broad stroke statement, but I feel like when I am first working with a male team, I want to portray and perceive them. Like I want to portray and give the perception because it's true that I respect them and I respect the hard work that they're putting into their workout. Whereas if I went to a female team and I said, "I see all the hard work you're doing." Sometimes the girls would be like, "Yay, thanks." But most of the
That's
time
true.
with female, yeah, exactly. It's like the girls are like, "Great, but my boyfriend just broke up with me." That does not connect. Whereas with a female team, I say they want to know that you care about them. That is your
That's
step
huge.
forward.
That is huge.
And huge. And it's like you talk to any female athlete and you affirm her feelings
Oh,
and you understand her social life and you understand the load that she's carrying, whether she's verbalized that or not, you will automatically build trust and build that bridge between you and that female athlete. Whereas if you're working with a male team, I say they want to know that you appreciate the hard work that they're putting into it. And then what do? They'll run through a freaking brick wall for you, right? Like it just happens. I know it's a broad stroke and every athlete is unique, but the more that I hear you say as an athlete, like, what did you need in those moments? You needed coaching staff that portrayed that they cared about you and they acknowledged your emotions in the moment. And that would have been so affirming for you. And you could say, you could disagree with me. I don't know. I feel like you're agreeing with me, but
no,
that's just kind of
I
what I'm
totally
hearing.
agree.
Oh man,
Sorry,
it
I
cut
think I
out
just cut
again.
out. Sorry. No,
Hello.
I like
Okay.
totally agree.
Yeah, go back like 10 seconds.
Yeah, I will say I like totally agree with that. Um, like what I needed, like, and yeah, maybe it is a broad stroke, but like I will say, like as an athlete, like what I needed was to know that you saw me as more than an athlete. Like you saw me as a whole person, like not just some cog in your machine, like to keep your job. Is basically like I needed to know that like you cared about me and like like not all my interests. And like I'm not gonna ask you to like I wasn't gonna ask you to ask me how my weekend was and ask me how like X somebody's birthday was. Like that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking that you care about me and about my
Mhm.
success, and in turn, like that's what makes me trust you. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's the big difference in like the two coaching styles that I had is that like the coach I had at UNC was like I felt that he had put the effort in to make that relationship to care about the person that I am, and like that like made a world of difference. I know there was so much support there. Um, as opposed to like where I was like, do you even care? Like,
Yeah.
do you like the only thing I think you care about it are my marks, and they're not going well. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's just crazy. It's crazy, but man, I'm so grateful that you were able to transition through your masters to compete for UNC. Okay, final question for this evening because I feel like this is such um a fun conversation. But what does your exercise routine look like now that you're post collegiate? And or what's your relationship with exercise look like now that you're
yeah,
done? And that has that transition been hard for you? Because it certainly was hard for me, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So talk
yeah.
about that a little bit.
Well, okay. I'll say like I said, I've always been like a bigger athlete, and I think that helped me as an athlete. But now that I'm transitioning to like everyday life, like I think that it's important that I like you know don't carry extra weight that like hurts my heart or that like like strains my like lungs and stuff like that. Like I think there's a lot of things that like I objectively like need to like want to improve for like my total well-being. Um and so I think that's what I'm
Mhm.
focusing on right now is like trying to be like the most healthiest me and um like looking at my body as like objectively like what is it doing for me and how what can it do for me
Mhm.
as opposed to like how does it look.
Mhm.
So whether that means like I don't know dropping a couple pounds because it's hurting my heart like that seems more important to me than like me being like, oh, I need to lose 20 pounds to like fit in this dress. Um,
Yeah.
so like that's kind of my relationship with like how I view myself and like how about my health. Um, like I've mentioned, I meal prep.
Yeah.
So
Look at
like
you.
I'm very like I'm not like I'm very strict on like what I eat and pretty like for the most part like pretty like healthy and stick to like them like high protein diets and or like foods and meals and stuff like that and getting all my veggies and stuff in. So like I feel like right now like my main focus is just being like healthy and creating like a habit of being healthy. And like transitioning out of being like I need like 4 protein shakes a day to like recover from my workouts.
Yeah.
Maybe I only need one. Like maybe you don't. So it's like definitely still in progress. Like I graduated in May, and like so still making that transition. But like for working out, like I took so over the summer, like I took a bunch of time off because I went to like Vietnam for reasons for like for a program, but like I took that time off and like I was also with athletes there and they were like working out the entire time and I was just like, you know what, I don't need to work out, like I am okay with this. um and so now I feel like I'm not working out because I have to. I'm working out because I want to, which is something I really
Mhm.
have to restructure, or I've had to restructure because like I want to be healthy and I want to be like fit and stuff like that. And so like that's like an internal motivator for me to go work out, not because like I have to go work out. But I like lift 4 or 5 times a week. And I walk my dog like between 45 minutes to an hour every day. And so like just like enjoying working out and exercising and getting outside, I think is really important right now, even when it's 30 degrees outside. So,
Amen, sister. Man, if I could have a perfect advocate for the More and Company motto, strength training and walking and getting outside and enjoying the fresh air and enjoying your dog and your pets, it's Jordan Fong. What a
yeah, well,
banger
my
way
dog
to
is
end
my
this
entire
podcast.
life, so
Man, I understand. I get it. I get it.
I
I
was
get
saying
it.
I did the challenge. I think was that November that you did the 30-day walking challenge.
Oh my gosh, I think it was October. Yeah.
Oh, it was
Did you
October.
do it?
Okay, so I did it, and now my dog expects to wake up at 6:30 a.m. and go walking every day.
Um, I will say that my walking habits have significantly changed because my dog has expectations now. Not because
No,
I have an
literally.
internal motivation. It's because of my freaking dog.
No, because when she wants to walk, she wants to walk. And
Yep. I get it.
I don't blame her because I made her do it for a month and she enjoyed it. And so now we're on a routine, which helps her. But like I said, very plan oriented. So like now we, have all of our
Yep.
steps in our day.
I love it. I get it. Thank you so much for this conversation, Jordan Fong. You are an amazing woman. You are an accomplished woman. You are a mature woman. You're a beautiful woman. You
Oh,
think through your answers. You are intelligent and you're a go getter. And I absolutely love that and adore that about you. And that is why, even
stop.
though I'm not coaching at Carolina anymore, and even though you're not at Carolina anymore, we have remained friends as
This is
20
true.
something year old adults. And what a blessing that has been for me to have a friend who is in similar boats. We understand these concepts and we see each other within the light of college athletics. And that blesses me more than I think you know. So I appreciate you spending your evening with me and being on the Heyo podcast.
Yes,
So,
thank you
anyways,
so much for having me. This was so fun.
yeah, we got to have you on again. We got lots to talk about, but
We have
okay.
lots. We spent hours talking, so
Uh, yes, we have spent hours talking before. That is for sure. Um, all right. Well, thank you for listening in. Per usual, please rate and review. Because this is a guest podcast, the video will be on Spotify and YouTube. So if you're interested in seeing Jordan's beautiful face, you can go ahead and watch alongside on YouTube. But have a wonderful evening. Bye.